Once again, we'll do a recap. We're gonna do a vocab slam again. And we're gonna do this time I'm changing things now. We used to just do hip documents. Now we're gonna do like a mini DBQ. I'll give you a prompt, but it's more about like you organizing, try to get used to the groove. And it's not that hard, don't worry. So it's all about getting ready to just familiarize yourself with the format. And shout out to Mr. Beckman. So he actually like helped make this like most of this content like with his study guides and all, which are also available on the Fiveable website. So check him out too. All right, so oh wait, my laptop froze. I finally got up. I still don't see anything. Yeah. I usually when I watch streams, I just refresh. It's usually like it was hmm. I'll check. I'll think yeah. Try logging out and then try logging out. Yeah. Go to rug. I know what it looks like in the point in like the viewer point of view. So you can try what Dan said. Yeah, crowdcast. Okay, going back. So so Unit 6 has officially like 8 topics, but I grouped them by theme. So actually, yeah, it's typo Unit 6. So I think King Dan was referring to like 6.2 or 3, like specifically. So I grouped like the imperialism. Imperialism is on this part, 6.1 to 3. So like rationals, the reasons behind it. Imperialism, and how like states expanded. So yes, that's under 6.1 to 3. And we also have the economic side. Imperialism was not only for like political reasons. You know, if you want to earn money fast, like snap, 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 you gotta scramble for a lot of colonies to get the reference. So there's the economic side too, and like what changed in this time period. So that's under 6.4 to 5. 6 to 7 is more migration. Industrial revolution, we see the growth of cities, more jobs. Where are people gonna go? To the jobs. So they're gonna go there. They're gonna go there. So you're gonna see more migration. Ooh, ethnic enclaves. You're gonna see that term later on stream if we choose to go over that. Last one is more on a scale, causation. You can apply continuity change over time. You can apply comparison here, but the best skill, like the most, like what college board expects you to know is like more like causation to understand. So in the polls, yeah, cause and effect, yeah, it's just a fancy word to say that. But in the polls, vote for the top two. Actually, no, just what section do you want to talk about? We'll talk about 2 of them in the interest of time. Um, just so we can have more time for practice. So I'll pick the top 2 in the votes. So once again, it's want to talk about imperialism or the economic side of it, or migration or cause and effect. Shadow hunters. Oh, oh yeah, that young adult. I think I talked about the young adult fiction novels. Oh man, I haven't finished it. So yeah, I think I was stuck at like book 2 or 3, so I need to get my act together over there. So I see 2. I see the second one, the fourth one. So 2 votes and 1 vote. So last call. Ooh, okay, we're split. I mean, I can probably talk about 3 of them. I'll try to hustle my way through because the last time I like run out of time. So okay, so you know what? I'll just do 3 of those 3 because it's tied. So love the energy. Okay, so let's start with imperialism, which makes sense because you want to know the causes of imperialism. Explain its winning. Um, so look at this cartoon of Charles Darwin here and his chimpanzee monkey. So the dominant idea here, what empires use to justify their imperialism was social Darwinism. So you've had honors bio or bio at some point in a bio class, you know Darwinism is like survival of the fittest. It's the same idea here. It's about applying that knowledge, that scientific basis on like a political side. Like once again, all ties back to like racial superiority, and like their goal is to enlighten everyone else. So if you heard like The White Man's Burden by Kipling, yes. If you read it in class, it's a good document to read. Yes, it's all about that. It's about like these Europeans, or even these Europeans burdening themselves to enlighten everyone, which they had to do first by gaining control over their land, because they want to run things over there. If they want to fix the system over there, they got to run things first there. So that's why they got to do it by hook or by crook. So by force or not by force, which is mostly on the former. Also, imperialism is obviously we have competition, but we already saw this before. We already saw this in the age of exploration, Spain and Portugal, France and Britain. So now we see more, actually a lot more of that, because now we see more players. We see the U.S., we see Japan. Well, Japan got away with it because it has its own little spear here, but there's the U.S. trying to get some territories in Africa. Actually, no. At some point, it thought of trying. Who changed your vote? Uh, okay. So the US thought of trying, but the point is, there's more players. If you scramble for Africa, you see like if you look at maps, you see how it has like a lot of colors. You see a lot of color coding, and if you think about it, each color represents a different nation. So imagine how many competitors are there. Imagine how many went to that conference, that Berlin conference, on just to get some land, because the major players back then were only like Spain and Portugal, and then Britain came to power with Industrial Revolution. We see other nations catching up. We see Russia catching up. We see Japan catching up. We see U.S. catching up. So we see a lot more competition here, and more as they are capable of it, due to industrialization. So remember, we talk about the consequences of industrialization here. So yes, yes, you're right, Tanya and Dan. And like always, as always, imperialism pretty much means that like these nations are competing, get additional territories. So we see more of that. Like the U.S. gets the Philippines, the Guam, Puerto Rico at this time period. Um, Once again, scramble for Africa. Belgian Congo, even India. So we'll see like that. They had a rebellion, and then the British squashed it, and then they eventually like took over like directly. So once again, racial superiority. Yes, ethnocentricity. It's a good like. That's a fancy word to say that. So you can say that, or yeah, it's basically the same thing. Ethno means like ethnic, and then centricity is like you're centering the world. So like ethno, like ethnic superiority. You can say something along those lines. Yes. So yeah, examples once again, Dutch East Indies. So we see that in like Southeast Asia, like Indonesia today. We see it on India. Once again, they had a rebellion, and eventually, and they had the Sepoy rebellion, and the British squashed it. So they realized, oh, we gotta up our game, and they take direct control over India at this point. We see Japan. Remember Meiji Restoration, or however you pronounce it. It gave them a huge boost, the industrialization. So it was able to, even in a small country like that, even a even a small island nation like that, was able to defeat China and Japan, and no, China and Russia in their own like conflicts. So imagine the power of like industrialization. Must be really powerful. And once again, scramble for Africa. So that's the best example you could use at this time period. Settler colonialism. So let's break this down. Colonialism, once again, what's the keyword? Look for the keyword colonies. So it's something along the lines of building a colony. And you see the word settler there because that's the main way to use. Yes, French to Algeria's, or but honestly the best example would be like the British to Australia, so where they first sent like the prisoners, like a penal colony. So they sent the prisoners and they sent the prisoners and like indentured servants over there to Australia. So that's my best, like basically you see like settlers. You're having settlers like take over and like impact like the indigenous people there, the native people there. So imagine like Columbus, but at this time period. So the best example would be like Australia, New Zealand, and you talk about France or Algeria too. Of course, if you're a local and you see these foreigners taking over, you'd feel like, huh, that's not good. So we see rebellions. Yes, the Maori indigenous in New Zealand, yeah. Negative response. Once again, it's Sepoy rebellion. So these Indian soldiers, these Indian local rulers tried to overthrow the British. It's like a uprising, but they failed, and that failure like led to like the British clamping down control over the over India. So now we see it as a direct colony. It's not just an indirect colony. Indian revolts. Once again, it's that idea that they tried to imagine it's like think of it as a revolution kind of, but like on a smaller scale. They tried to revolt, but they failed. So now now Britain clapped back and made it a direct colony instead of like just just like they're not regulated farther. Yeah, they just I heard, yeah, you did say Native Americans. So yeah, it's Cherokee Nation. So it like you're gonna learn more about next year, but in U.S. history, Cherokee they know them for going against the British at that time the time colonization, and we have some examples from Africa too. So if you want to talk about like if hating the British in general, we have the Zulu Nation and the Sokoto Caliphate, and there's once again it's a continuity. Most of them try to revolt or resist, but because not having the superior technology, they failed. So, but you still see that trend that they're not just like, oh, welcome home. They're not that friendly. I wouldn't. So yeah. So here, key concepts: social Darwinism, imperialism, like know the territory, know at least examples of it, and how like they responded, how indigenous people responded, how locals responded. So that's the defining points of this one. Jumping to 6.6, the migration. Once again, urbanization, rising emergence of cities, more jobs, more people interested, more people interested are going to go there. Just think of it like a perspective, like you got to follow the money. So where do you get the money? From jobs, apartments, tenements, yes. Transportation. So causes. So you're right, yeah, apartments, tenements, yeah. Transportation. So I would call this a cost because you need to move around, like you need to be flexible moving around. You don't want to walk like every day to your workplace. So that's one of the motivations too. Like you want to go from place to place, like essential needs, like how we have it today. Like you can just drive a car to like CVS or to Walmart. So it's the same idea. So once again, but you can also it's a good example. It's railroads, steamships, locomotives. These are the defining like the big deals at this time period. Coerced labor, that's a cost too. So remember, I want to use the Australia example. They sent prisoners to Australia. They sent indentured servants, which I'll go over later. In Australia, did they want it? I don't think so. They were forced to do it. So and slavery continued. It actually ended by the 1800s. So it still was a thing. It still was a thing. So you still see the Atlantic trade, maybe the last of it, but it still continued. So there's still coerced labor, slavery, or whether it be like full on slavery or just indentured servitude. So you had to like It's like paying, but like in labor. It's like, paying off your loans in labor, something like that. Yeah. Take a loan to pay work. Yeah, yeah. So good explanation by Tanya over there. Check it out. And imperialism. I say that not because like, oh, they migrate because they expanded. What I mean by this is that usually like people from like either the colony, so let's say India, they go to like their colonizers state, like they take it at least that's a really good thing. Like they take advantage of that and like get educated. That's what Gandhi did. That's how he succeeded. He was educated in Britain, and he realized like, oh, there's a lot going. This how they're running are how they're running India is wrong. So just see the connection. So let's say I would give another example: the Philippines to the U.S. Once again, it's all about their friends to Algeria. So it's all about like the connections. Like the colony go to the colonizer, like people from that colony, maybe for opportunity, for education, because most of the time it's better. Effects, impacts, gender imbalances. I would tie that most to one, men are more it, men had more chance of being accepted to like to like a job, and two, that once again that's slavery ideas. So yes, iron law and wages, so that's slavery ideas. So they always most of the time it took the man. So who's left in in that country? So it's mostly the women who are taking care of the communities. So uh and yes, King Dan mentioned this earlier, ethnic enclaves. Ever heard of like a lot of Chinatowns across the world? There's a Chinatown almost anywhere. It's the same. It's like weird, right? But that's an impact of migration. You see these people banding together. See these people banding together, and like these like similar like people of the similar ethnicity banding together. And we call this ethnic enclaves because as a community they were able to thrive even like as a minority group. Yes, they don't necessarily have a leader. So, and most of the time they even get representation in their um in their group, like in their community. So I think enclaves once again. So think of like Chinatown across like the world. Like I think enclaves are like communities. So like of my like think of minority groups, but they're in communities. So let's say let's see. I'm looking at the map right now. So I'm think of like I don't know. I like using Filipinos to U.S. example. So Filipinos in the U.S. if they're banding together, there's like a community of them. We call it an ethnic enclave. If we see we see Algerians in France. If they're banding, they're together. They actually have like they have their own like Algeria town. Imagine like something like that. They have their own town or community within them. We call them an ethnic enclave. Racial hierarchies. Once again, goes back to discrimination and all. So obviously, locals. So if you're an immigrant or a migrant, you're still in the back of the priority list. They would still prioritize locals over you. In Guyana, they would still prioritize them over you. So we still see like discrimination. We still see imbalances. So this is why. So unlike today, we have like the Equal Opportunity or Equal Protection Act, where in jobs like they don't discriminate based on age, race, gender. Well, back then they didn't have that. So money. So yeah, we see the Chinese Exclusion Act. So in the U.S., we see these Chinese being barred from immigrating, or they work in mines, they worked in building railroads. So we see discrimination, or not discrimination, but like inequality, inequity. Why Australia policy? They did bar non-white people, it's non-European people to migrate to Australia because they're trying to keep it racially homogenous. They're trying to keep it white. So They're trying to keep it like European like dominated, even though they took it from the Native Americans. Was there like gold or something in Australia? Yes, Australia had a lot of natural resources, so yes, gold is one of them. But there are a lot more that caused them to go there and take over for enlightening reasons, civilizing reasons. So there's that. Cause and effect of migration. Now we're moving on to the overall unit itself. So here's some three big causes and effects. So global capitalism. Remember, they stopped colonialism just didn't work anymore. Mercantilism stopped working anymore. So like that, all that colonies and gold and silver trade, it stopped working. Why? Because the Industrial Revolution just opened the whole wide world of resources to use. Now you can use more. You can use a lot more like resources like coal, like steam, and so you have now we're looking at another economic method here. We call it capitalism. Once again, if you can check out the stream from Unit 5 for that. But capitalism led to deindustrialization in the sense that it basically benefited the nations who are really industrialized. Basically, if you have the technology, if you have the capability, it's a dub for you. It's a dub. So U.S., Europe, Japan, even Russia, and some other nations not mentioned here. But it also led to they go up, they rise up the global leaderboard. I would call leaderboard. Well, who's at the expense of these nations who are not industrialized because they're not caught up. They're not caught up. So if you know, like capitalism is like there's a long story to that, but basically it establishes that balance of power, economic power. Now we see U.S., Europe, Japan here. We see everyone else here. So like think of like Egypt or like any other country that does like manufactured goods at this time, like the handmade traditional methods to produce their goods. You also see once again imperialism. We see industrialized states expanding overseas. It's just basically like colonialism or settler colonialism. So once again, now they're way stronger. I would say stronger or more capable to like defend ourselves because once again they had the capacity to produce weapons, technology than non-industrialized ones. So that's how they took over Africa real quick. They were not able to resist with their weapons. When you just compare weapons, it's like the first thing you want to compare when you're matching states up. So like it's like a matchup, like a fight. Global migration, once again, all ties back to technology. Now you have and colonialism where the colonies people from the colony go to the colonizer. Um Next, but here's the thing though, it's not all fun and games. Once again, we see injustice, we see violence, not only not only through the people abusing, not only through the colonizers abusing like these natives or these exploiting these resources, but we also see the violence from the other end where the locals are resisting, they're rebelling. And this, we don't see an immediate effect of this injustice because I know people are still in fear here. People are still trying to like please these guys just so they can, just take all your money. It's more of like a take all our money, but just let us live, okay? So they're still in fear that of their lives and all, but eventually going down the road, after World War II, we see these independence movements, especially in Africa, which is a shame that we won't be able to go over them, to talk over them in AP test. But hopefully your teacher's going over that. But this is where we see like the decolonization movements in Africa and Asia and even Europe and Latin America still. So it all ties back to this violence. It's in these inhumane acts like treating people not only as below like human like treatment. So, ooh, that's really quick. Pretty accelerated there. So, uh, vocab slam. So, by the way, that wraps it up. So, if you have questions on that, uh, yeah. So, if you have questions on that, go for it. Actually, I didn't go over all of them. Just make sure. Yeah. Okay. So, if you have any questions, vocab slam, go for it. If you want to access the rest of the presentation because I didn't go over all of them in the interest of time, you can. I'll send the slides soon, along with a discussion post. So we can do practice. So yeah, screenshot that, and if you want to just go for it, just pick random word, or you just want to review, or you're curious about something, just drop a word on the chat. Tupac Amaru, good one. So yeah, Tupac Amaru. So he was re- he was um he was rebelling against Peruvian like he's a Native American. He's rebelling against like it's not necessarily Peru, but it's Spanish viceroy. We call it viceroy. It's like a territory over there in Peru. But he's the key leader. Imagine like the rebellions. Imagine like a revolution, but like smaller and smaller scales. So Tupac Amaru like rebelled against the Spanish in Peru, and while he did ultimately fail in the sense that he did not liberate Peru or like that region, but still like he had a large impact because he's still motivated like other neighboring tribes to like rebel still. Sepoy Mutiny. So once again, that's the one where Indian soldiers and like local rulers collaborated and like colluded and tried to overthrow the British, but they failed. So what you need to you need to focus on the consequences. You need to know the consequences, and just it led to the British to take over as a direct colony, and which is why we see like which if you look at like continuity and just cause and effects, if you argue this is like the main cause behind like Gandhi's entire nonviolent movement. So, sorry, what? I see. Okay, I'm just looking at the comments. So, y'all okay? Okay. So, yeah. So, once again, in a nutshell, Indians try to rebel, they fail, British take over. So, because it used to be just like a trade thing. It used to be just like the British East India Company. They're just like visiting there, just trading over there. They do have economic control over there, but they're not like imposing control. So, Suez Canal in Egypt. So this is one of the good examples for like if you want to talk about specifically British imperialism because they were in Egypt and basically if you're basically once again if you have control in over that colony, if you have control over that colony, then you can call the shots, right? So now the Suez Canal over Egypt, if you look at the world map, like it's like Mediterranean, it's like the Middle East here. Like the British wanted like an easy way to Asia, and it was pretty hard at first. But they had this canal built. The canal is like a shortcut built. So they called the shots. They had control over there, so they have the Egyptians build them over there. So all goes back to control and what you can do. So because they need the shortcut to Asia instead of like going around Africa or having to pay another dominant empire for trade. Well, basically, they just controlled Egypt. Egypt is like the pathway, like the gateway to the Indian Ocean. So they had to they just took over that, which is interesting. Oh yeah, Tanya has a Quizlet like she compiled like a Quizlet list of vocab terms. So you should be in the chat, I think. All right, let's see. Anything else? Last call for vocab slam. We'll go over that. We'll go back to this when. Okay, last one. So the Xhosa cattle killing movements. So this was in Africa, and this is one of those like resistance. This is one of these resistance examples, but it's more of like it's like the best form besides in this time period of like nonviolence because it's like being passive aggressive. They were like, you need our cattle. You're gonna take our cattle. We're just gonna kill them. So they do this in like cycles. They just like have like they had all these communities like telling them, oh hey kill your cattle before before the Europeans come back and take them. So just so they don't get anything out of that region. And eventually though eventually they get ticked off and things turn nasty. Yeah, Sridevi has posted Sridevi has posted the Quizlet too. Thank you. All right, moving on. We're doing the DBQ practice, mini DBQ practice. So yeah, shout out to Tanya for that once again. Once again, your main strategy is to do hip, H or happy. So, but I'll use hippo for this stream. So that's once again it's context going on, audience, who it was made for, whom it was made for, point of view. Is it by a German? Is it by a social Darwinist? Is it by a local indigenous individual? Is it by a European colonizer? It matters. Why did you make this? Are you trying to convince someone? Are you trying to show the horrors of slavery? Are you trying to warn someone? Trying to encourage someone? And once again, outside evidence. Just you only had to do it. If I remember correctly, had to do it twice this time instead of once. So I'm just gonna flash the rubric information real quick. Oh, are you talking about the outside evidence? Well, some people make the mistake of connecting it just to. First of all, don't make a summary. There's already one step forward. Don't just summarize it, but connect it to your thesis itself. So connected to your thesis itself. So let's say I'll give an example probably once we go over this because it's hard to visualize one right now. But I'll go over it once we see the document. So yeah, so you only have to do you only have to hit two documents, two outside evidences. Use at least analyze at least like 4 or 5. I mean, actually no, 4 to get the point. Yeah, 3 to be safe. If you wanted 2, just go one extra. Because if you get the 1 wrong, if you get 1 out of 3 wrong, you still get the point. Unicorn point, yeah, that's really I try to like for now, like I try not to tell what I mean to teach what to do, but I know there are previous DBQ streams that tell you how to get the unicorn point, but I'm not that confident in my even now I'm not that confident that I get a unicorn point in any history class. So okay, here's the prompt. So get used to wording. So you probably know the good thing with this prompt or just in prompts in general, you probably know the answer. Though you'll be forced to use documents, but at least you have an idea. If you have historical knowledge of it, then you're good. You're already good. You're at a good place because if you know the history, you're gonna have you can think of the outside evidence. Ooh, 6 to 7 minutes. Yeah, we're getting close. So, all right, look at the problem. Evaluate the extent to which global imperialism transformed societies between 17th and 19th, 20th centuries. So, actually, that's supposed to be 18th, but so I highlighted. Oh, MDBQ is like mini DBQ because DBQs have 7 documents. Mini DBQs have 5. So once again, look at the keyword here: transformed. Transform means if you're transforming something, you're having an impact. So what's the best skill to use for that when you're impacting something? When you're impacting something, that's cause and effect. So when you're think of like the previous prompt, like the Columbia Exchange impacted society. So it's the same idea here. Global imperialism transformed societies, cause and effect. So between this time period, yes, you can say Africa. So let's look at the docs, and this time you don't have to hit all of them. Just whatever the first one that comes to your mind. Okay, and this is not a long read though. So okay, ready? Look, one last look at the prompt. Boom. That's the first one. Tell me, or just in the chat, just hit, or just do 1 or 2. If 2, if you want, but I recommend just whatever is the first one that pops in your mind. By the way, people make the mistake of looking at the year and like, I know what's this about. This is secondary source. So the 1957 is not about this verse, but it's when an anthology was compiled. So, yep, global imperialism, how it impacted societies. Man, this is not even say please. Okay, so, yeah, you already have a good you can already have you can already use this doc for outside evidence, honestly. So, um, you can use white man's burden and uh oh yeah okay. So if I use an example that's outside evidence. So you could say that the white man, so talk about imperialism. So you can talk about how the white man's burden was used as you can first say what it is, then say that it was used as justification for European imperialism in Africa, and then explain why is it important. Yeah. So you got to explain. So you got to tell what it is first, explain it like what it is, and then why is it important. Yeah, this is how to say please. But yeah, Olivia is right. Social Darwinism. That's actually you can say that's H. What's going on here. And actually, you can say the POV. Actually, for me, the easiest to do is POV. Like you see, my father was proud. My mother was beautiful. The white man burned my brother. So, and if you look at the title, it's an African. Obviously, he's African, and he is upset. He is appalled by this man's behavior, but he has no choice because this conqueror, keyword conqueror, as you can say, social Darwinism, and y'all funny, social Darwinism, and um, you can say that. But remember, the prompt is about how it transforms. So make sure you talk about how you can talk about how Africans were exploited, and actually you can just talk about the graphic details of this first and foremost. So and yeah, cruelty of the white man. You can talk about that. Obviously, good job. So next one. It's still from the same source, but I just want like to give you an additional like this is a different like idea though. It's not just social Darwinism. Mm-hmm. Colonized country. Yeah, same source, but it's a different topic. Just gonna because I saw these two together and realized like, oh, I'm looking for something here. Looking for something. So remember, talk about the impact, like at least to the Africans. Okay, so they said expanding for religious reasons. Yes, you can say that. As context, forced conversion of religion. Yes, yes. Actually, wait. Oh yeah, yeah. They still did a lot of that in this time period, obviously. So I'm looking for. I think yeah, I think Sri Devi was saying it. Oh, actually, wait. Let me read Tanya's. Kind of shows irony because trade was made widespread if it conquered. Ooh, you can. Oh, that's an interesting point. You can say that. You can just develop that argument. Ooh, very interesting. This is why I love essays because like you can argue pretty much, and as long as you can defend it. So I was looking for this had to be really specific or technical, but I was looking for cultural imperialism where they force once again they force religion. They force like uh they once again they use it as justification. They use like Christianity as justification to colonize and force it to the locals to force conversion. Honestly, just say that. But you can just say that. Um, and yeah, so you can highlight the last line. Now we have the Bible and they have the land. They have the land. They have their land, and now we just have the Bible. Like you talk about how their past you talk about how their past cultures were like wiped out. But if you can go the forced conversion route too. Yeah, actually, I think that would be better. Warning to potential colonies through a person. Yeah, it's like a precautionary tale, I would say. So good job. Next one. We're breezing through this actually, so we might have time to go over the last, the one topic I didn't go over earlier. So this is the next document. O is outside evidence. Some teachers say hip, so it's not. Our teacher uses hippo, but O is not. You don't have to do O all the time. You don't have to do it twice. Outside evidence. It took place after slavery. You can yeah, actually try if you say it took place after slavery, try to connect it to how it actually that's a long stretch. Yeah, yeah, it's a long stretch. Champerice, good connection. Um, but I think that works more for for outside evidence. You can say like these plantations, like the imperialism, like help like stimulate these plantations, these Champerice plantations, or like um. But yeah, it's in Louisiana. So, okay. So I was looking for So remember how I talked about the Chinese Exclusion Act and how there were racial hierarchies question mark, and yeah, so you can talk about indentured servitude too, actually. But this is more on the this is more on the I was saying earlier. This is more on the racial indentured servitude first, and then the racial like uh inequities because ethnic inequities because yeah, yeah. It's you don't have to always So when I was saying a Chinese Exclusion Act, I meant that as a obviously you can't mention it here because it's not it wasn't obviously if you're doing historical or if you're doing just analysis, you only have to mention the focus on the what do you call this? Focus on the caption if ever. Focus on that. Say like oh the as a summary. But if you want to use outside evidence, like you can say that this sets a pattern of discrimination at this time period, not only in the U.S. but in the Firstly, in the U.S. with the Chinese Exclusion Act, so that's more on outside evidence. But I would be focusing on jobs, like what jobs they had, and like the nature of their jobs, like they're laborers. They're not in like factories. Like there were less opportunities for them in factories. But actually, that's more in complexity too. So you just talk about honestly, you can just talk about the indentured servitude, imperialism. So okay, so this is actually like my answer, so like the prompt. So the reason why I brought all this up because why are the Chinese at Louisiana in the first place? Bingo. Yeah. So migration. So that's the impact. Poverty. So you can argue poverty, but I would focus more on migration and why are they there? Actually, no. Yeah, you can say poverty. So migration and why are they there? So was it to escape from a bad government or economic problems locally or poverty, more opportunity? So that's the impact of imperialism. So I was just jumping all around the place. Sorry about that because I think I got too deep into your y'all conversation, but um, yeah, migration. So remember how in the overview I said there's what do you call this? There's political effects, impacts such as like new territories. There's new uh there's like these abuses, and there's also the social impact. So like or where you see the migration. There's also economic impacts. So there's more natural these natural resources in these colonies were exploited. So once again, yeah, Olivia did bring up a good point. Like focus on the prompt. So like think about like imperialism. What did it do? So yeah, the capture should be yes. Oh yeah, they're always yeah, because if you just look at Chinese laborers, look at Louisiana, like oh, they're just plowing the fields. So you want to pay attention on the document. And what I was saying is that the dates are not always so like in the earlier one. So like here, this did not happen in 1957. The date is just telling when this source was compiled, and maybe it's not always a primary source. So just be careful with that. Maybe it's like some author. So I'm pretty sure David has been there, but like maybe he just compiled all these African verses. But hopefully, when you take the test, it should be mostly primary sources. I'm hoping. So here's the last one. By the way, you'll notice a lot of typos, but this is just like the literal translation on the what the original document was saying. So primary sources just means that the person like actually, no, the West African verse is a primary source, but that's confusing too. But because what I say is like secondary sources are like historical analysis. So imagine you're like a professor at Harvard analyzing that source. So, primary source, a primary source is more in like this one. This is a primary source. This happened at that time. So that one actually, you bring up a good point. Though it doesn't really matter at the end, but if you want to be careful on the dates, I would call it a primary one. You know, I probably shouldn't have included it in the first place, but I wanted to cite it properly, so I'll fix it when I send this to the community. Community five will love me. So okay, thank you for bringing it up though. So at least you know what to like improve on. Then, charter oath. So I'm looking at it. Outside evidence. United in classes was bad for upper class. So focus on what the major. Actually, no, focus on the last paragraph. Actually, this is more like this is more political. So, uh, and actually, no, it's actually first and last. So, what was happening in Japan at this time period? Meiji Restoration. It's a keyword. Like, was Japan already in the global? Was Japan already a global power this time? Yeah, no. So, uh, but yeah, modernization is one because once again we're talking about so imperialism. The tendencies that when you're an imperial nation, you're trying to follow the West. So you can count as outside evidence too, but modernization. But what I'm looking for was just expand just new states like emerged, not new states, but like new industrial states emerged. And then if you want to talk about the like, social critiques, I guess Tanya, you can talk about most as the first one. I mean your first answer, like your classes. Yeah, it's we have a warning for all customs. Yeah, you can say that. Like they're trying to move away from the past. All customs of the past shall be broken up. They're trying to move away from the past. Yeah, it's great for peasants who can work their way up. Bad for those can be demoted. Yeah, you can talk about actually you can take this a lot of ways. You talk about hierarchies, you talk about just the new states emerged. Or there's a lot of ways you can tackle this one. So but what I was thinking was more on like Japan rises as industrial power at this time. Because yes, as evidenced by this one, the last one. So all kinds of patch be broken. Like they're ushering a new era. And so, yes, samurai go bye bye. Yeah. So they're trying to like they're trying to revamp the whole system, right? Because they're trying to be united instead of like divided. Because historically there was like a feudal. So keep it. Yeah, yeah. Just keep it in mind. Would this be Confucianism, or is there still some more impact? I wouldn't go down like the Confucianism route, but I would focus on either um Japan like westernizing, following the West, modernizing as an industrial nation due to due to imperialism, like because remember they're the rising star here, so they're trying to they're trying to unite here. So all classes, high and low, shall unite vigorously carry out administration affairs of state. So they're trying to like unite here because think about it. If you're a nation and you're already divided, how are you going to conquer anyone else, right? So so yeah, I can focus on like the Meiji Restoration causing the Japan to become power, or I can focus on it like Japan trying to socially revamp. So keyword social or political. They try to revamp the system so that you know they're calling themselves a nation at this time. It's not just a state. They're calling themselves a nation. So that's like a key shift, like a change. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. I have 3 minutes, so I'll try to. So remember how we skip over that other topic because we only because of the poll. So real quick. So during this time period, we had commodities. So so by definition, they're raw material. Hey, Mr. Lil. By the way, he's a very awesome teacher. Like he had an astrolab one time. He had it. He brought it to a stream. I think. I mean, I think sadly I missed that. So commodities. That's the keyword you want to talk about, like raw materials or products that can be bought in sold large quantities. So sounds technical, right? I'll just give examples. Beef, guano. Guano is like bad excrements. Cotton, rubber. So you can say you can just say raw materials, but I like commodities honestly. I like saying commodities. So but yeah, they're the ones that this is the center of like imperialism. They're trying to get the Europeans trying to get these commodities in these across the world. That's the primary motivation. And they used railroad networks. They said steamships, you say goods. As long as you can, if you can give examples, that's better. You say goods. You can, as long as you're communicating the idea or products. And they use railroad networks. They use mostly railroad networks. They also use like steamships too, and they use like locomotives. But they mainly use railroad networks to export their goods. These commodities, coal-powered trains. Yes, 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 yes. And now some people are like they confuse like these imperialisms. Like, wait, there's imperialism. What's economic imperialism? Well, look at the describing word economic. So economic imperialism is more like it's more of like it's still that it just shows you that they're conquering these states, or they're like taking over Australia, they're taking over India, they're taking over Africa because of economic gain, because of you're trying to get these commodities, they're trying to raise these commodities. So India was a cotton colony, you're trying to raise cotton. Yes, it's like a joint stock company, but um look at that political cartoon. They're grabbing. Look at that. The British have a grab bag. I can't see the other one, but they're grabbing. They're grabbing the resources, these goods that will bring them economic gains from these nations, from Africa. From you can see Africa, you can see Asia. Yes, colonies and resourcing colonies. Yeah, summing it up, nutshell. Opium. So the Opium Wars happened at this time. So the British were very clever. So they know China was kind of it's not China's not not your friend, the average friendly neighbor. So they introduces, hey, you want to try this opium? And they got him addicted. Exactly. And then they over there, the Chinese were like so jacked. They want more. And you already see like chaos over there. They're like, we want more. And then so things escalate, and it's just like the demand for opium was so high, and the British used this opening as, and once again, it's all about the administration. So it's not always the common people, but also like the higher ups, so the emperor. So they use as a replacement. So now everyone's addicted, and they want more, and British took advantage to colonize it as first, I mean, colonize it in a sense that like they took over economically, because now everyone's relying on this opium. Opium was from India, so really clever, Britain. Yeah, it was twice in a row. So if you heard the first Opium War and the second Opium War, yeah, copper and other ores in general. So like in Latin America too. So if you remember, it's still a colony by most of it got shaved off, but it's still Spanish, Portuguese like dominating over there. Yeah, China with war, and we see infrastructure. So we just see the development of like copper. So once again, remember, Industrial Revolution enabled more natural resources. Yeah, and once again, Industrial Revolution enabled more resources to be used. It used to be like, remember, before that it used to be gold and silver trade, but now we have a lot variety of resources to use. So what if it's copper? And once again, you gotta feel the yeah, telegraph line. So yeah, Mr. Little. So, but then again, you don't honestly like for me, like a mistake I had before. I didn't focus. I just focused on like memorizing and like these stuff. Like I was like, oh, copper, opium. But honestly, looking at it by like how Mr. Little talks about it, like look at the real life applications and why. Once again, we have copper. I didn't look at that before, which I regret, but I'll do it in my like history class right now. So, um, but yeah, if you're stuck in like, just think of like creative ways to use that resource, you know. So like steam to power the engines, the locomotives. So think of it that way. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. So uh final questions. Pascal. No worry. Once again, we have a community board, so it's Fibeable. If you go to, it should be at the top bar, like with the subjects community. Just you can just drop a post or just comment on existing posts. You know, it's a forum, it's a community. You know, people are going to respond to you. Don't worry, you're not alone there. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you guys.